Welcome back to Sex Crimes Defense Podcast with Chance and Jay. Chance Oberstein is a criminal defense attorney in California. I'm a media professional. This podcast is for informational purposes only and is not intended to be used as legal advice. This episode discusses allegations reported publicly against Congressman Eric Swalwell. These allegations remain disputed and no criminal conviction has been reported. All individuals discussed are presumed innocent unless proven guilty in court. So let's get into the allegations.
Okay. What do you have to say about the allegations? What do you know about the allegations anyway?
Well, I'm referencing several sources, and I do want to say there's so many cases all the time. It is very hard to balance all of this information that's hitting us.
Right.
So I mean, in some ways, this case already feels like this was only a month ago, and it feels like longer than that. So it's May 2026. Here's part 2 of us talking about U.S. Representative Eric Swalwell facing multiple accusations of sexual misconduct and assault, but not any charges.
Not any charges.
Not any charges. So we have I think what we have to do is look at I guess I can't even call them victims. I'll just call them, accusers.
They're accusers at this point.
Okay.
Let's go. Let me just go through this one more time, and we'll just pick them off. A former staffer accused him of sexually assaulting her on at least, 2 occasions, including one incident in which she was intoxicated and unable to consent. So that is a sex crime. Okay. Additional women reportedly accused him of various forms of sexual misconduct, included unwanted touching, unsolicited explicit messages, and sending nude photographs. Well, if they're adults, the only thing that sounds actionable there is unwanted touching. So we don't know how many additional women are claiming sexual batteries. And then the House Ethics Committee announced an investigation into allegations he engaged in sexual misconduct toward an employee. I don't know what that constitutes, but I'm aware, at least, of one report that prosecutors in Manhattan are reviewing at least one sexual assault allegation. So it looks like sexual batteries. One could be when you say I was drugged and without consent, that could be rape. So it looks like rape, sexual assault, sexual batteries, and one undisclosed crime. I don't know what the Manhattan folks are looking into, but these are serious allegations.
Well, and it's kind of crazy because one of them, and I don't have her name in front of me, which was maybe good, but it sounds like 1 or 2 accusers actually work in politics.
Yeah, I think so.
And that's so I kind of want to get to his pattern.
Well, do you see a pattern? What kind of pattern do you see?
Yes, I do. I see a pattern, and I don't think it takes. See, this I think is his biggest problem. Okay, I don't think it takes a rocket scientist to see his pattern.
Well, if it doesn't, and this is what's so problematic about this, it could be that pattern's put out on purpose. But tell me what you get. Tell me what you think.
Well, again, I know we see, and that's the thing. You can probably prove beyond a reasonable doubt that this did or didn't happen, and therefore you must acquit or whatever, right? All we can hear forever now, we can all just hear Johnny Cochran in our heads, right?
Right.
I mean, seriously. But having said that, I do believe the accusations of Lana Drews, who it's said that she's an actress and in real estate or something else. And whether or not she is any of those things, I do believe that she was possibly a victim of a sexual assault, as I've read it in articles, because I'm not creating anything. I'm reporting news, opinion, and commentary under the First Amendment, that it would seem that she was a victim of a classic pattern of, and I want to say this. In a lot of these articles, they say intoxicated, and maybe they're just trying to be safe, but I don't think it's intoxicated. I think it's more under the Bill Cosby type of intoxicated.
Well, interesting. Is she the one that went to Europe or met him in Europe?
And this is you know what? And this is why he has plausible deniability, because there's all these situations where one could say, yeah, but you came by, you went to my hotel, you went to the bar with me, we were on a drive.
Yeah, I
get that.
The thing is, again,
and I think there's a reason why it's like that.
Yeah,
there's plausible deniability. Well, it's kind of brilliant. It's quite a pattern.
But there's also allegedly pictures showing smiling faces and happiness, and see, that's weird.
Yes. Okay, but that's part of the problem too, is we see the reason these things get so derailed in my mind is because the other half won't accept their part.
Well, yeah, but what I'm saying is
there was a good moment leading up to the bad moment.
Could be.
And you have to own that.
It could be. And what we don't understand and what we don't know is what the time sequence is. We don't know that. Okay. So we don't know if the happy faces came afterward or if they came before. We don't know how that was photographed and documented in time. And that's why testimony, recollection, and an assessment of her credibility is really tantamount here. Because and let's
they're going to pick her apart, and he has nothing to lose, so it's going to be full guns.
Well, this is the thing. Where's the physical evidence? Because that has to be weighed, because you got to look at that in terms of, if you're saying there's a pattern, there's got to be consistency. If you're going to say there's an incident, it would help to corroborate it. There should be some type of motive or prior behavior or contemporaneous communications to establish that there's something going on there. Not just to say that where there's smoke, there's fire, but, something that really means something in terms of evidentiary value.
So then I think you'd have to go back to the Weinstein case and say, how did you get him? Because they got him. So how did they do it?
I think
how'd you get Bill Cosby after all those decades?
Yeah, but in that element, I think they were able to use those things, those different factors I've just laid out, and the same assessments are going to be made here. We just don't know yet because we haven't collected enough information to really put it together. But I mean, when you think about it, these are modern allegations, of course, and we have social media. They spread like fire online. And what they do is they influence witnesses and they contaminate jury pools and they pressure institutions and create this new thing that has been around for a while, but is now really, really, really been sharpened up. And it's called trial by media.
So and I want to say, when we do this, and you know this about me, I want to get to ground zero of reality. And let's go to the former staffer. The former staffer, I believe, said they were in his car and they were already doing nude photos and Snapchat. And one might say this is grooming. And I don't care about the definition, but they were already in an entanglement, as I think we've heard. But so they're already doing something consensually.
They are, and this is the bad shade, this whole thing, because he's been married since 2016. And obviously anybody who's been entangled with him knows he has a wife and knows he has children. And what does that say?
Well, and there you go. So as the prosecutor, you can bring up the morality. And you'll notice I haven't even brought that up because I'm not talking about morality. I'm talking about human sexuality. And if you've got a former staffer, and she could have 4 boyfriends and 9 children, I don't care. That's not true. But my point is, if you've got a former staffer and a congressman, and they're attracted to each other, the rest of the world doesn't count in these moments of sexual attraction. Yes, they're sharing nude photos or whatever, and it's fun and they're having a great time. He takes his pants off in his Jeep or whatever, allegedly. And she does start to give him, oral sex, allegedly. But then she feels awkward about it and he cracks a joke. That's all human sexuality. The problem is then when it doesn't take much longer for her to then feel like she's waking up on the floor in his hotel room. The problem with all of the accusers is they all have the same moment in their story where they talk about waking up in his hotel room, wondering what happened, flashes of memory, and that's not drinking, folks.
Well, and this is, again, you've got what appears to be a pattern. But on the other hand,
it's a clear pattern.
But on the other hand,
rhetoric.
But on the other hand, behind whatever these allegations are, lies motive, right? And also credibility, believability. Are these things actually true? Was there motive? Was there motive to go elsewhere? In terms of going south on maybe a friendship or a relationship, even if it's casual, okay, and immoral. Who knows? I mean, it's going to come out, But think about it this way, these investigations, just like the things you're saying right now, they really raise a difficult tension. Alleged victims deserve to be heard. They deserve it. Okay, institutions must address misconduct seriously, even in this country. On the other hand, accused individuals retain constitutional rights. Allegations alone are simply not proof. They are allegations. And fairness requires careful investigation. And balancing these principles is one of the central challenges in a high-profile misconduct case, which is what this appears to be shaping up to.
This is going to be a big, once we find out, I don't know. We're circling the bowl right now and we don't know when we're going in, but I mean, we're going in. The fact that he resigned, the fact that he apologized, and this isn't going away. This is Weinstein. This is the next Weinstein, and it is not going away. I do want to mention this. You talked about House Ethics Committee. Did you see how many people are on a sexual misconduct list
of
huge. Allegations?
It's huge.
It's crazy.
Right.
Oh my God. Do we have a Congress of sex offenders?
I don't know if there's sex offenders.
That was a question,
is Congress composed of rational, moral people?
No.
Well,
no, and this is why. And actually, that's why I brought up sex offenders, because I think we're gonna look in the rearview mirror on this sex offender thing and realize how wrong we got it.
I mean, Napoleon Dynamite might say, "What do you think?"
I want to talk about motive for a second too. Motive is a weird one. And again, I know this is why I could never be a legal professional, because I'm so outspoken and positive of some of the things that I believe. And I guess we all are in some way. But on the motive, see, you always have, I think in a sexual tryst, there's always motive on really everybody involved. Whether it's, I just want to get my rocks off, or I think I can get maybe a $50K investment if I get their rocks off, or, whatever. Or for example, Lana Drews isn't, she's not clean of motive, because she thought he was going to help her with kind of a startup business. Now, I'm not blaming her for that. That's very normal. But she did think there was maybe something to transact. She didn't think that would involve waking up in a hotel room with a massive headache. And this is the problem, is that it seems that he got very good, and these are opinions, news, and commentary, but what I've read, it appears he got really good at reading the room quickly acting very abrasive and almost like he could create the shock factor, which was titillating, and allowed him to keep advancing like a Svengali. I mean, this guy had game.
Yeah, but what if, and I'm just saying, what if these prior cases influenced what was said in retaliation because the quid pro quo didn't work out? Easiest thing in the world is to say this is just like this or just like that, because if the allegation's just like this or just like that, Harvey Weinstein or whatever, then all of a sudden everybody starts repeating the same thing and you've got a pattern going, okay, for a shakedown. So it's not exactly like, hey, because I've said it, someone else said it, and someone else said it, it establishes a pattern, because that pattern is clearly out there for success in these types of cases.
And I'll allow it, as a judge says, I'll allow it. But I want to say, I think he was so brash in his ability to go forward with his impulses. And that's where we could get in his psychology if you want to. But I think he really did kind of have like a sexual drive compulsion. And he wasn't just hitting on staffers. I think he was hitting on everybody.
Well, and that may have been. The question is did he ever cross the line? And did he ever do what they said he did? Because if he did what they said he did, obviously he crossed the line. Again, coming down to, what the facts and circumstances of those allegations essentially turn out to be.
Well, I want to say this. I'm going to do it with a contrast, is that I keep talking about Bill Cosby and Weinstein because we know these are mammoth cases of sexual misconduct. And like Russell Brand, he's being accused of having sex with somebody underage. And I would say, compared to Swalwell, that's nothing. Because when you are, listen, if it can be proven that were roofies and stuff, I mean, you're dealing at another level. And from what I've read, I don't have any firsthand knowledge. From what I've read and heard, we're dealing with roofies and that kind of stuff. And when you get into that arena, I mean, most people can't wrap their head around that. I find it interesting that even in our own, in sexual innocence culture of the 70s, that Spanish fly and, I don't even know what Spanish fly, but isn't that a drug?
Well, yeah, or something. It's something that you would drop in someone's drink, and and it would cause them to be vulnerable. And
see,
same thing.
Okay, so putting something in someone's drink to be vulnerable, I mean, just that thought, isn't that in itself borderline criminal intent?
I'm not even sure it's borderline criminal. It may be full criminal.
Okay.
The fact is that you've got to establish, factually that they actually did it, and either there's going to be physical evidence because someone
police reports,
because someone kept the glass, and you tested it with DNA, or DNA testing, or the person who speaks about it, who is the alleged victim or the complaining witness in the case, is completely believable.
So I'll make a wager, and I don't know if I'm again. This is all opinion. I don't want anybody to say, "Oh, you got a vendetta." But here's my guess: is that if he doesn't get legally pursued on this, he's got a lot of life ahead of him, and there's a future incident waiting around the corner. Because if you don't get caught, and you manage to get out of it, and you keep on going, the problem is he got so much pressure on his life, right? His family and his wife and his career, everything's just swirling. That pressure is going to push him into another questionable, this is just a guess, but if he doesn't get caught on any of this, he's got a future problem in his, and I don't wish it on him. I don't know what he does, honestly. And I actually, listen, his ability to get all of these women to go to a bar with him and go to his hotel. It's interesting. It makes you wonder how did he pull this off if this is what happened.
And there's some broader questions here too. I mean, something that you brought up already, which is, does resignation imply guilt? Does it? That's a broad question.
I'm surprised he resigned.
That's right. That's right.
I am.
You know, you're surprised because it's the context of the world we live in today. Okay? Because no one did anything wrong, and that's been the standard response no matter what. But you want to know something? That's a big, broad question. Does his resignation imply guilt? And I think there are some other topics of discussion that are going to come down, which are our politicians treated differently than ordinary defendants, how media cycles shape public assumptions, and the tension between believing accusers and preserving due process. That is a very, very, very big, broad thing to discuss, because modern political scandals unfold simultaneously in courts. You know, congressional committees, social media, and public opinion, each operating under different standards of proof. And here we've got this conglomerate all going on and playing out in the media. It's crazy.
I wish. See, the thing is, I don't believe any of the accusers would make up the drugging hotel thing, and there are more than 2 separate stories of this similar pattern.
But it could be.
I think that's the biggest problem.
It could be, Jay, that you're conditioned from things that have gone on before in recent history, and that when an accuser accuses, they're just as aware of it as you are and understand its effect and impact. And believe me when I tell you this, if it's not happening at the moment and it's happening much later, it's so much easier to fudge or to say something and stick by it, because there's no way to disprove what you're saying anyway. It's almost a fail-proof way of making an allegation without having to test it, because you're corroborating it by other people and other stories that have come before that turned out to be true. And that's a real problem here. And that's a credibility problem. Big. You know,
one of the other problems that we've done so much lying to each other in public and in the media and in what we say is inappropriate. I mean, there's somebody right now like judging the shit out of somebody, and they're going to get drunk as fuck tonight and do drugs and do immoral, and it's too bad. That's actually why I want to keep doing this podcast, to be honest about things. I mean, I'm positive at least one of the accusers was having a fucking great time up until a moment. And that doesn't discount what happened later. But just say I was having a fucking great time until the thing at the hotel. Just say it.
Well, that's to be determined. I mean, what are the key takeaways from what we're discussing today? 1, the allegations remain contested. We can agree on that, right?
Yeah.
Okay. 2, investigations don't equal guilt. I think we can agree on that.
Yeah.
Okay. And 3, political consequences can arrive long before legal conclusions. And we're seeing it play out in real time. So in the coming months, that may determine whether this becomes a temporary political scandal, which is what it was to begin with, and now it's morphed out, or a defining legal crisis for his career and for his life. That's what we're going to see in the coming months.
For the record, anybody involved is invited to be a guest and tell their story. The problem is, I do know, and you can hear it, I think, in the tone, is that given the way the media and public perception works, it'd be almost impossible to just lay it out there about what actually happened, how it felt at the time, when things went wrong. But I would love to have an interview like that. I would love to interview an accuser that says, I was having a fucking great time up until this moment. I would love that.
Well, let's see what happens, Jay. Someone may answer your call.
Yeah, that'd be great. That would be great. Put it in the comments. Please do like, share, subscribe. You've been listening to Sex Crimes Defense Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us again.
Thank you.
One.